Welcome to the Cultivation Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Hamill, and this season is all about words to live by, things that we need to implement in our life, be diligent about in our life, and things to remove from our life. So let's get into it. Today's episode is all about the word growth. I'm super passionate about the word growth because growing things produce fruit, right? If it's healthy, if it's growing, it produces fruit. It produces produce, right? There's products of our growth, and we need to be growing in our lives. So let's look at, what does Webster's dictionary say growth means? It's a stage in the process of growing, or full growth, the process of growing. Progressive development, right? That's literally what it means. It's a progressive development or an increase or expansion. That's what that means. It is the process of growing or the progressive development, the increase and expansion. So how are you growing your mind? How are you growing your soul? How are you growing your abilities? How are you growing your purpose? How are you growing your possibilities, right? Growth should be happening. You should not be in the same place. Just like when my kids were young, honestly, the most growth my kids had, it was incredible growth, is like 0 to 2. Now, obviously, they're not done developing at that point because they didn't stay 2 years old. And it would be a little bit of like Benjamin Button series if they stayed at 2. We don't want that to happen. We want them to keep growing. But the amount of dependency that they had on me from 0 to 2, and then you think about how much that changes from 2 to 4. Literally, they went from 100% dependent on someone, right? A grown-up, an adult, myself, their mom, Nana and Papa, Grandma, Grandpa, right? Whatever the terminology is, they're 100% dependent on somebody for food, bathing, clothes, right? Whatever it is, all 100% of provisions comes from somebody else. But then they start feeding themselves. They start clothing themselves, albeit usually not very good, but they do start dressing themselves. And then, lo and behold, they get potty trained somewhere around the 2 number. That's a stereotype. Maybe it's 4. So whatever the point is, they get potty trained, and then they start cleaning themselves up and bathing themselves, right? And so somewhere, I'd heard a childhood psychologist talk about somewhere around the 4 and 5 year mark of a child is when they hit the 50% dependent upon an adult stage, right? And so at first I was like, wait, 50%? No, they're still 100% dependent on me. I still provide the food. I still provide the shelter, the house over there. I provide their bed. They're still dependent on me. And he's like, well, dependent is not the same when you're talking about the IRS as a dependent, but they are still at about a 50% independence. And really our growth gives us more independence, more freedom, that sort of thing. And so how are you growing? What are areas you need to grow in? Because you're either codependent or dependent on someone else or something else, or you're stuck in a place and you need to break through that growth because you've increased or you've expanded your emotions, you've expanded your understanding, you've expanded your risk factor, and so now you're being more adventurous in whatever those areas are in your life. And so those things are growth. Now, here's the hard part. A lot of times, most of the time, we don't see our own growth. And so we need to have people near us and next to us. I know that recently, in the recent history or past. My wife was at a place where she felt stuck, and I came alongside of her and said, hey, babe, let me tell you the places where I've seen your leadership, your personal self-leadership, and your leadership of others. She's a health coach with multiple health coaches that are a part of her team and her organization, right? And so I talked to her about how she has grown, not necessarily numerically in a business number standpoint, but she went through this season where I said, hey, babe, you have grown in your ability to lead others, and you've responded or reacted to other people's breakdowns or whatever the situations were. I said, here, I identified areas where she grew. She didn't see that in herself. Somebody else had to identify that. Many times we require, because of our perspective, because of our perception of ourselves, it requires a third party or a second party, if you will, to identify areas of growth in our life. And so who's the voice in your life that's telling you and showing you and pointing out areas of your growth? And it could be just you've grown in taking personal responsibility. You've grown in controlling your emotions and controlling your attitude and controlling your tongue. You've grown in controlling your anger or your rage, right? You know, whatever the case is, you've grown in these areas of your life. We need somebody to identify those for us. The other thing I will say is that oftentimes we don't know our growth because we failed to actually measure our growth, right? And so how do we measure our growth? Well, first and foremost, we need to, and you've heard me talk about this before, understand or identify our current reality. You need to set a baseline in a particular area that you want to grow in. So it could be, I want to spend more time with my kids. That's an area I want to grow in. And to do that, I need to be more disciplined in saying no to other things, to other obligations. I need to get off of work on time. I need to get home on time. You know, whatever the case is, this is what I need to do to spend more time with my children, right? If that's what your goal is. Okay, well, that's a great goal. But then in order to measure growth, you've got to get really specific. I actually want to spend 20 more minutes a day with them. I actually want to spend 2 hours a week more with them. And I'm just giving out examples. So you would have to measure where your area of growth is. And please apply this idea to any area of your life, whether it's health, whether it's your mindset, whether it's your time, your relationships. If you want them to grow, you have to identify where you want them to grow, and then you have to get specific about how or what effort it will require for that to grow. Oh, I need or I want, boom. And then you start charting that. You start tracking that. Boom, 10 minutes more today. Okay, great. Now, the thing about that is you need to celebrate, because here is where we train our mindset and we build our motivation. We need to allow ourselves to celebrate progress when it comes to growth. Much like, again, I'm sorry to keep going back to my children, but much like when we were kids or we had kids growing up, we kept measuring their growth. We didn't wait till they were done growing or finished growing to say, oh, look, now you're this height. Now you're 6'3", now you're 5'8", now you're 4'11", whatever the height is of your children when they are done growing or we're done growing, whatever the case is. We don't wait till then to measure them. No, we keep track. We have a little marker on our wall. Oh, Britton started 4th grade and she was this height. Britton started 3rd grade, she was this height. And so there's measurement all along the way. And I have 2 daughters, and so there's been some competition as to who's the tallest and who's taller this week or this month or this year. And then that competition actually goes between all of the cousins. And we have one, actually, there's like 4 cousins that are like giants, massive dudes. They're like 6'11", not really, but next to my kids, I think Kylie, my oldest daughter, is like 5 foot even. She might be 5'2", I don't know. But next to this like 6'7" cousin, right? It's kind of hilarious that her head is as tall as his hip, kind of a thing. But nonetheless, this competition between all the cousins happens, right? Where they're like, who's the tallest? And you measure this during progress, and then you celebrate that. Woohoo! You're this much further along. You're this much bigger than last time. And the celebration is a key ingredient to our growth. I know that doesn't even sound right, but it's so true. Celebration fuels our motivation to keep growing.
Available today, my book, The Life You're Meant to Lead. It's finally here. It's finally available. You can get it from Amazon. You can get it from our website, ourcultivatedlives.com. We got it in the tree version. We got it in the e-version. We got it in the audio version where I read the book by the author, The Life You're Meant to Lead, a powerful tool. Pick up your copy today.
The other thing I'll tell you, my friend David Speck, who has a podcast, by the way, that you should check out, the David A. Speck Show. We'll put the links to that on our resource page because it's a powerful show. He wrote a book called Old Dogs, New Tricks. And the premise of the book really is that you never outgrow growth. You never outgrow growing. Our brains are meant to constantly be growing. And most people stop living, not because of an age, not because of anything else. And I don't mean death living. I mean they stop being fully alive because they stop growing. And perhaps you are at a spot in your life where you're not experiencing the fullness of life. You've heard us talk about that. The fullness of life, it has diminished or it's become dull because you've stopped growing. One of my all-time favorite quotes, it's on the wall of Pieology, a pizza place here in Southern California. I don't know if there are other places, but they are here, and I love to frequent them because they have a cauliflower crust pizza, and I love that. But nonetheless, one of my favorite quotes on them was, "When was the last time you learned something for the first time?" And I thought, what a great quote that is. I forget who they even give credit to it. I'll have to look it up, honestly, but I just remember seeing that on the Pieology wall of quotes. And I thought, so true. We always have to stay learning. We always have to stay growing. It is literally the thing that keeps us alive in the fullest. And so I hope you keep growing. I hope you challenge yourself. I hope you dig deep. I hope you reach within and say, where do I need to grow? And put in the effort, put in the diligence, put in the tools, the structure, and you cultivate that growth from within. Hey, thanks for being a part of the Cultivation Podcast today. I hope you've enjoyed it. One more time, I'd like to ask you, would you hit that subscribe button so that you get all these resources and tools? We've got tons of amazing things that are coming out. We are just scratching the surface, and we definitely want you to be a part of that. You can also sign up for our email list where we drop sneak peeks and previews and give early access to a lot of those things. And so you can sign up for that email list on our website, ourcultivatedlives.com, ourcultivatedlives.com, where we have all of our resources. And again, you can sign up for that email list to get all of the advanced copies or advanced releases of our newest resources and tools. And we look forward to continuing to walking the cultivation journey with you. Until next time, I'm your host, Tom Hammer.
Thanks for checking us out today. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on all the incredible content we have coming out. Also, we'd love to hear from you in the comments section. We read those, we respond to those as we journey together in the cultivated life.